stop sharing
Okay.
a slide while I introduce
Okay.
Professor Stefano Shera. Please, everyone, if you have any other questions, as soon as Prof is done with his session, we would have an interactive session
Okay.
as well. So you can please stop sharing and
Okay.
yes, thank you. So our next
Okay.
speaker is Professor Stefano Shera, a senior trainer, coach, and speaker with over 25 years experience in learning, personal and organizational development training programs. His focus is on skill related to conflict management, negotiation, and effective communication. Stefano is a scientific manager and trainer credited by the Italian Ministry of Justice for training courses on civil and commercial mediation. He is the president of the board of Lazio region of AIF, Italian Trainers Association, and member of the National Executive Council of Conentans. He has authored several books and articles on conflict management, negotiation, and mediation. We're so glad to have you, Prof. Please, you can go ahead with your session, sir.
Thank you very much and good afternoon. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir.
For me, it's a big honor to be with you this afternoon in order to share some ideas, some opinions, and also my researches and studies and also my experience, of course, in negotiation. First of all, I want to thank also Rita, because Rita shared some things that are very important within the negotiations in work environment. And first of all, I want to suggest you a book that for me is was a source of inspiration, because consider that I started to cooperate with one of the pioneers in Italy, at least, of negotiation and mediation studies. His name was Mario Quinto, and he was my mentor in the world of negotiation. And I started to read a lot of books. In fact, I want to share with you at the end of this module, at the end of this seminar, also a selected bibliography in order to have some books that for me were very important. The first is The Manager as Negotiator by Lux and Sebenius. So this title is, for me, is very important to understand that the manager within an office, within an organization, within a company, within a public administration is very important for him or for her to have negotiation skills. Negotiation is, first of all, at least for me, searching for the building of a relationship with people. Is the sort of coordinating communication procedures within a company, within a group, within a team, of course, and also negotiation in terms of having some styles, having some methods, methodology in negotiation, and so on. That's why, for me, this book, The Manager as Negotiator, is an ancient book, because it is since 1989, so an ancient book, but very important. And I think that you can find also the original version. That is my first sharing with you. Going and sharing also my slides, and of course I want to share with you at the end of this module also my slides. I just want, this time, I just want to focus on some specific things, okay? Some specific concepts that for me are very important in negotiation. First of all, I want to tell you a story that is very ancient, because this story is from the ancient Egyptian story, and was considered and was told also by William Ury, that is an anthropologist, and he is the writer of one of the most famous books all around the world. The title is Getting to Yes. For me, getting to yes is the door to enter the world of negotiation. So the second book that I want to share with you is Getting to Yes by Roger Fisher and William Ury. And not in this book, but by William Ury, you have also this ancient Egyptian story about 17 camels to share. So I want to read together with you this story. Once, a father left 17 camels as an asset for his 3 sons. When the father passed away, his sons opened up the will. The will of the father stated that the eldest son should get half of 17 camels. Middle son should be given 1/3 of 17 camels, and the youngest son should be given 1/9 of the 17 camels. As it's not possible to divide 17 into half, or 17 by 3, or 17 by 9, the sons started to fight with each other. So they decided to go to a wise man. Okay? This is a famous situation to have a sort of introduction in negotiation. So I want you to find 1 minute, not more. We have not so much time today, but for me it's important just for you to make this kind of thoughts. You are the wise man. Which would be your advice? I leave you 1 minute, not more. We have not time enough, but just 1 minute to think. Yes, I am the wise man. What would be my suggestion for the 3 sons? Just 1 minute, okay? And then I will give you the answer. Just 1 minute to make some considerations, to have an opinion, think, and so on.
I'll probably give the other person. Okay.
Some seconds. Oh, Olu, the titles, I write the titles in chat while you are thinking, okay? The first is the manager. Manager is negotiator. And the authors are Lax and Sebenius. The second book, the title is Getting to Yes. Getting to Yes, and the authors are Fisher and Ury. Okay, so you had the opportunity, the time to think, okay? Thank you, Rita, for your answer. Now we have the opportunity to add the solution. The wise man listened patiently about the will. The wise man, after giving his thought, brought 1 camel of his own and added the same to 17. That increased the total to 18 camels. Now he started reading the deceased father's will. Half of 18, 9. So he gave 9 camels to the eldest son. 1/3 of 18, 6. So he gave 6 camels to the middle son. And 1/9 of 18, 2. So he gave 2 camels to the youngest son. Now add this up. 9 plus 6 plus 2, 17. And this leaves 1 camel, which the wise man took back. This is the solution. This is the story that I use to introduce negotiation in my courses. I work with companies. I work with, of course, Rome Business students, Rome Business School students at university, and so on. And for me, this is just a simple story in order to introduce some of the features that are related to negotiation, such as creativity, such as the intervention of third parties, for example, the will of the parties, and so on. A lot of things that must be included in a negotiation. A negotiation is something related to a process, a procedure to negotiate, something related to wills of people, something related to strategic points by parties. And first, Rita, one of the first things that Rita told us was about the importance of strategy in negotiation, and so on. So this story could be very useful in order to understand a lot of things in negotiation. First of all, creativity. But creativity means the opportunity to go up, to go wide. Okay, so if you think to negotiate just in terms of a logical point of view, you miss an important opportunity. You must make a sort of hybrid integration between the left part of our brain and the right one, the analytical, logical rationality with the creative, innovative, and the lateral point of view. For example, there is an important author, his name is Edward de Bono. He wrote about the lateral thoughts. That is something that could be very useful within a negotiation. So this story, this simple story, is useful to understand that in negotiation is important for us not to have a fixed idea. Otherwise, we have to focus only on one thing, but you could miss the opportunity to see in a wider way, and all, of course, to have other kind of ideas, other kind of perspectives, and so on. So I just want to give you a simple definition. As I told you, I studied with Mr. Mario Quinto, that was professor at the University of Rome, and he was my mentor, and I worked with him for a long time. And I just want to give you a first simple definition. For him, for my mentor, Mario Quinto, negotiation was just a strategic communication. And you have two simple words in which you have communication, the importance of communication, and of course, the importance of strategy. Within strategy, you have interaction between people. You have goals to be achieved. You have preparation. For example, according to the Inca story told before by Rita, and I think that for me was important material to have good examples and also good materials to work on. Someone answered, maybe was for Inca would have been more important to have a good preparation before the negotiation. For example, about salary scale, growth prospect, work environment, and so on. This is preparation. In negotiation, preparation is fundamental. You don't think, you must not think that for you is important only to behave in a certain way when you negotiate a deal, because you have to prepare in a strong way on yourself, but also on other people, on other party, in order to have enough information to deal, to face, and to face to the situation and the other person. So definition. Another definition that is for me the only one that could be useful. Of course, you can find a lot of definition in books, but for me it's good to have this kind of different definitions. First of all, by Laxus Sebenius, I repeat myself, Laxus Sebenius are the authors of a famous book entitled The Manager as Negotiator, and I wrote it down on chat. Negotiation is the process of potentially opportunistic interaction through which two or more parties in conflict try to maximize their interests in a common decision action. And you can find here a lot of keywords. Interaction, opportunistic in terms of strategic, maximize, because every party wants to maximize his goals, his interests, and so on. In a common decision action, because either the parties share a common problem. So they are different people sharing a problem that is in common. So this is very important to understand the two levels of negotiation, people and problems. That's why the first principle in principle negotiation is the negotiation that is told by Harvard negotiation law, Harvard negotiation project within the Harvard Law School. The first principle of principle negotiation is first separate people from problem. One thing is the problem and one thing is the people. Otherwise, you consider the problem as the people and the people as the problem. But you have two different levels and you have to consider these different levels. Otherwise, you can create a mix. But in negotiation, it's important to divide these different things. Otherwise, you are confused by considering either people, either problems. And you have to consider, it's important, is better to consider first, for example, problems with people and then problems about the situation. We have different approaches between, for example, an American-based style that is summarized by Harvard Negotiation Project, is a sort of economical, juridical pattern and refers to managerial topics. For example, the Harvard Business Review is probably one of the main, at least the most important magazine all around the world about management, not only about negotiation. But as I told you, negotiation is one of the favorite skills of managers, of course. And you have a different approach, the European approach or the approach by European school. And this approach is focused on the processes. For example, in Harvard negotiation project approach, it's not important the process that you used in order to have a deal. It's important the fact of having, of not having a deal. According to European school, it's very important to follow a process. This is specific, for example, and this is especially for French authors, French experts, more than, for example, German, more than Italian, because Italian authors, Italian experts in negotiation are more focused on process too. But in general, we have a big difference between the American approach. It's not important the process, it's important to arrive to a deal, to have a deal, to make a deal, and the European approach. European approach says that for you is more probable to have a deal if you follow a specific process. Okay, this is the main difference between European studies and American studies. But considering one on another approach, you have some elements that are in common. First of all, the interdependence between parties. In this sense, the negotiation, according to Lax's and Benny's definition, is a process of potentially opportunistic interaction. It is a sort of interaction. You share not only power, not only economic situation, you share a problem, you share emotions, why not? First, you and Rita talked about the importance of emotion, for example, in the case study. But emotion is a strong part in negotiation. Consider that Roger Fisher wrote a book all focused on the importance of emotions in negotiation, and is a big part of the negotiation. And we must consider this as a real part when we have to prepare and also to behave within a negotiation. Second point in common between the different approaches, European and American one, perceptions about conflict. We have a perception. We have not only something that is related to the rational, logical, structured situation and approach, but also something that is not so rational, okay? Perceptions, attitudes, and perceptions are the basis of our communication, are the basis of our behaviors. That's why perceptions are so important. That's why, for example, I am a mediator. As mediator, when I try to deal with, to make an agreement, to deal an agreement between parties in commercial and civil disputes and conflicts, I make a specific word on emotions of the parties, because it's very important to understand and let the emotions emerge. Consider that maybe it's not in this topic, but in Italy, but not only in Italy, of course, we have the familiar mediation. And in familiar mediation, the emerging of emotions is fundamental, because without let the emotions emerge, you have not the opportunity to focus on the other kind of topics related to a conflict. Because for me, the main problem in a conflict is not a problem related to the situation, but the perceptions that are involved in the situation. And the perceptions are human. That's why it's so important to deal with emotions before dealing with other kind of things. Third point, an opportunistic negotiation is an opportunistic interaction. I have a goal, the other party has a goal, and these goals must be integrated. And according also to different styles, and thanking another time Rita, she talked about the importance of different styles in negotiation. And according to these different styles, you could have different agreements, different kinds of agreements. Better. So we have a sort of different elements in common. We have different approaches, but these approaches share some elements. Is 15 after 4 and we are near to the end, and I'm sorry because at 4:30 I must finish because I have a lecture in another lecture in Rome Business School. I want to focus some points of negotiation that for me are very important for you to know, okay, to have just simple techniques to use and to have in mind in order to better negotiate. First, a famous status by neuro-linguistic program. I don't know if you already know neuro-linguistic program is a science, is a collection of techniques that are very important also in negotiation in terms of explaining communication, explaining behaviors. So one of the mantras of neuro-linguistic program is map is not the territory. What does it mean? Map is not the territory. Chinese people say there is my truth, there is your truth, and there is the truth. So if you substitute truth, the word truth, with the word perspective, I have my perspective, and within a perspective you have perceptions, emotions, attitudes, and so on. You have your perspective, and we have hybrid perspectives. That is the sum of different perspectives. So it's important to understand what is my point of view, but also what is the point of view of other people. Because you have to understand not the territory, but our maps. Our maps means first the map in our minds. Being aware of our emotion, says Daniel Goleman, is the first skill for a manager in order to understand my situation. Then I must and I can understand situation of others. That's why emotions are so important also in negotiation. Second point, you are not your position. Please, in negotiation, don't consider yourself in a fixed situation, because as a neuro-linguistic program suggests, we have ever a plan B or a plan C, a plan D, I don't know, an alternative. Okay? It's important, especially in stressful situations, to find, to study, and to search for this kind of alternatives. That's why, for me, when you are involved in a conflict, it's not a good thing to stay focused on this conflict, of course. Would be important because conflict for you is so important that you are not able to go over, okay? But it's important, for example, to have some interaction with a friend, with a colleague, with your spouse, with a friend, I don't know, another person, in order to have a different perspective. Consider that having different perspective is so important, not only in negotiation, but especially in negotiation. Third point, please separate person from problem. The person, the people involved is in terms of relation. The problem is related to content. And in negotiation, you have to deal to these different levels, relations and content. Sometimes you confuse content with relation because, for example, if I'm not a friend, if I hate someone, it's easier to have this kind of confusion between my sensation, my perception, my hate, why not, with the situation that occurred with this person. So please go beyond your position. An Italian expert of communication, her name is Marianella Sclavi. She says, according to his model of active listening is fundamental in negotiation because you have to understand. When I worked in my company, I was, first of all, a commercial part of the company, and I understood, I learned more than I understood, that the first task for a vendor, okay, is to understand the needs. Just asking questions, not proposing this pen, but to understand why this pen could be useful for you, or in general, why for you could be useful a pen, not this one in particular. Okay, so understand the needs is very important. For me, in negotiation, it's important to understand the need. When I work with a lot of customers, okay, so I must understand the needs of different customers. This morning, I had a call with a customer, and she was very anxious to define some days for the course, and I simply asked her, let me understand which are and what are your needs in order to be you as a support, to help you, okay? Just this kind of sharing for me, and for me was important, were important this information, because I had the information and to information needed to make something, to decide something, okay? To deal something. Listen, active listening, and observe with attention. Consider that observational listening are two important parts in negotiation. And first, Rita, and the Rita speech was very impressive in considering also paraverbal, not verbal communication. Please, you must become a good listener, but also a good observer, in order to understand all small details that could be very useful for you in a negotiation. Sixth point, win-win approach means that everyone must get something. And in this case, the styles are very important because there is one style that is the competing. The competing style for me is the style related to distributive negotiation. Because when I compete with other people, I want to win, no matter the situation is for the other, okay? That's why it's better to have integrity negotiation, because the real deal, real in terms of the strong deals, are built on win-win approach. I win, I get something, but you win as well. You get something too. So we will have the opportunity not only to cooperate, but also to keep this deal, because it's good for me, it's good for you. So it's a strong of assurance, guarantee of warranty about this, the goodness of the deal. Focus on different alternatives. Before taking any kind of decision, please focus on different alternatives and think to different alternatives. Maybe you know the brainstorming process. The brainstorming process is focused on generation of different alternatives. First, you find alternatives, then you decide which one is good, is the best for you. But first, you have to create alternatives. Otherwise, you have only one idea. Are you sure that this idea is the best one for you without searching no one ideas? The last one, build a golden bridge, is something that is more religious, more spiritual. For example, in Italy, we have a strong Catholic approach to life, okay? So build a golden bridge means that the solution must be shared and not the result of no one only. It's not something related to be good in general. It's something that is good for me. I'm used to say that negotiation is not a pacifist point of view, it's pacific. That is better because you work for the construction of your future. So I think that's time is enough. We are near to the end, and I'm sorry again that at 4:30 we must finish. At least I have to finish because I have another lecture, but I just wanted to share with you some points in order to have some ideas and also some tips, because I think that especially with this kind of modules, you must have some tips and some techniques that could be useful for your life and your behaviors, of course.
Thank you so much, Prof. It was such a delight to learn from you, and thank you for the book recommendations. I'm sure that majority of us will go and get those books to read more and learn. Does anyone have any questions specifically for Prof before he leaves? If you do, you could just raise your hand or you can drop it in the chat. Okay.
Of course, Temisan, I will send you the material. Oh no, already okay. You have already had
yes.
Yes, I just forgot, but I will send you a selected bibliography. Okay.
Okay, we have someone.
Ladi.
Yes.
Ladi.
So let me just ask you to unmute. Please, Ladi, go ahead.
Hi, Prof. Good afternoon. Good
afternoon, Ladi.
And for me, I joined because negotiation is a topic that I'm very keenly interested in, and I also very much eager. I'm eager to learn about negotiation and tactics regarding that. So I would like to ask concerning the topic around moving positions.
Yes.
So I want to ask for the place of compromise in negotiation. So how much should you compromise your position as against, even though you contextualize where the other person is coming from, where you're also coming from, you try to see things from their point. So how much compromise should you be willing to give in negotiations? And I speak to this in regarding, say, a potential employer is speaking to you, and then you're trying to negotiate the offer, or you're trying to negotiate a salary raise as a professional. So how much compromise should you really give? Should you be willing to give from your position when negotiating?
Okay, Ladi, thank you very much, first of all. Okay, for me, a compromise, I want to be a little bit provocative with my answer. For me, compromise is just a simple alternative within the so-called zone of possible agreements. I explain. When I prepare for my negotiation, I tend to think two different alternatives, okay? And of course, I'm not a wizard, so I have no, I don't pretend to have all ideas in me, of course. But for example, about a salary negotiation, I want to think about possible alternatives about this agreement. So I consider a compromise just an alternative within this kind of preparation. So if, of course, you could have some things that happen during negotiation and by which you must accept, or you prefer to accept something, no? I would like to tell you that I got all maximum goals in all negotiation that I used to be involved. Is it not so? Of course. But I like to think, and I can assure you that even though we can consider an alternative as a compromise, was for me just an alternative within the lots of alternatives that could happen within a negotiation. Of course, this compromise could be not so good for me, but was an alternative that I already considered. So was something acceptable for me. Otherwise, without this kind of alternative, otherwise I can decide to walk away. And first, someone answered about the ability to walk away. That's in negotiation language means the creation of BATNA. What does it mean? BATNA, best alternative to negotiated agreement. If I don't reach an agreement now, today, in this table, which is my alternative? This is important to prepare as well as the other alternatives. So for me, compromise could not be a good result, but is a result that's in my mind before the negotiation I accept it as potential alternative. Okay. Okay.
Thank you so much, Rob, for that. Yes, thank you, sir.
Too. Thank you so.
Too.
Thank you to Rita,
nice
to Justina, to all of you. Thank you.
Yes,
and I hope next time to have more time to share other ideas. Bye. I will send you the selected bibliography. Thank you very much.
Sir.
And
thank you, sir.
Okay, then, thank you.
Bye.
Please let's just